Life is painful. Maybe because of the loss of a loved one, a debt, an addiction, a chronic illness, or even having a deadline for a YouTube video. Life is painful in creative ways. People often ask, why? Why must I suffer? They want a reason to live and they're suffering to have meaning. So, how do we avoid these pains? We have solved many pains, but we've created just as many. There is no solution for preventing you from stubbing your toe. It is simply part of life. There will always be pain in your life, but there doesn't have to be pain in your child's. The only sure way to prevent their pain is by not having them exist in the first place. By having kids, we are also creating the capacity to feel pain. So when your child cries because of a bad day at school, they are not at fault. They had no choice. You, on the other hand, knew your child would feel pain in their life and chose to have them anyway. In other words, you are responsible. This is anti-natalism, meaning anti-birth. The philosophy that it's morally wrong to have children. We love to make babies. Billions of years of life choosing to reproduce has led to your creation, with even stronger genes to reproduce. But is it the right thing to do? Let me show you what non existing feels like. Imagine if you were an inanimate object, perhaps a cloud. There are many benefits to being a cloud. You don't have to pay taxes, and you don't have to get an engineering degree to please your cloud parents. Life as a cloud is devoid of all feelings and hence all suffering, no matter the wars in the skies beneath it. A cloud is always fulfilled and satisfied because it never wants anything. Similarly, your toaster is living a better life than you, which is to mean no life at all. How can we too live the cloud life? We will, on the day of our decease. We often wish to just sleep forever in a state of unconsciousness. This is not too different from not existing, right? Writer David Benatar says that a person who exists experiences pain, which is bad. But for a person who does not exist, there is no pain and so nothing bad. To him, life always has something bad in it and so is not worth living. He even says that a blissful life with almost no pain except a single pinprick is not worth living. But the happiness in life makes it worth it, right? We've all gone through the pain of an injection in order to be healthy, or worked painfully hard to achieve something. But then, what makes a life worth it? Most would agree that some lives are not worth living. A life of torture, a life of a slave, a life with a severe chronic disease. But where is the line between a life worth living and not worth living? How much pain are you willing to endure to receive how much pleasure? Perhaps we should weigh the amount of pleasure minus the amount of pain. But to quantify pain and pleasure is a big problem. Ice cream is plus 5, diabetes is minus 20. We all value things differently. The optimists will value their pleasures more, and pessimists their pains. We've tried to evaluate life using pleasure and pain, but life could be worth it because of one's effects on others, or the achievements that one has had. How you try to evaluate life is up to you and is completely subjective. There is no right answer. Anti-natalism is not pro-death. I'm not telling you to die. My lawyers say I can't. If you're in a tough spot and think life isn't worth it, know that it's in your hands to make it worth it. However, if there ever were a mass extinction due to an asteroid or let's say climate change, no one would be left to feel sad for humanity, which is not so bad. You didn't ask to be brought into this world. You were born without consent, whether you liked it or not. Of course, your parents couldn't have asked you for it because you didn't exist. Consent is often used to argue that birth is immoral. But on the other hand, if your parents didn't have you, that choice would also be without your consent. Being part of this world means that everything that you can't control is non consensual. You didn't consent to see this picture, but It happened anyway. Non consent is just part of the world. Writer Sarah Perry says that when a couple has the decision of having a child, they have to predict what kind of life their child would have. Personally, I don't even know how tomorrow is going to pan out, so you can see how hard it could be. Predicting a life comes with extreme uncertainty, which to her is good enough reason to avoid birth. Your child could have a 99% chance of having a great life, but a 1% chance of having a terrible life. Should you take that risk and gamble someone's life? Whether you're okay with uncertainty is subjective and up to you. This made me think of something. Imagine if you had two kids, one named John and another named Adolf Hitler. You probably agree that it was not worth having these kids. But what if John saved even more lives than Hitler killed? Do good lives make up for the bad ones? It is now more socially acceptable to not have kids. Women have more opportunities and have less time for family. And times like COVID or a recession make people uncertain. And when people are uncertain about the future, they become uncertain about the lives their child may have and have less kids. This is why millennials are having far fewer kids than their parents, as seen in Japan and South Korea. What about animals? Are their lives worth living? 72 billion chickens were slaughtered in 2019 alone. Most chickens are raised in enclosed cages where their eggs are sold and they get sold as meat. Their lives would be the human equivalent of a life completely in lockdown, except your kids get stolen and you get fed to aliens. Pets too live a life of lockdown. Wild animals may suffer predation, disease, and starvation. And yet, I think they live happier lives than we do, always in touch with their natural surroundings and rarely carrying emotional trauma. I wonder what they think of their own lives.